Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Dilip Puri. I'm the founder and CEO of the Indian School of Hospitality and your co-host for this evening. Participants continuing to join us, but they're already a very significant number, so we'll get right into it. Before I introduce our speaker for today, I wanted to share a couple of housekeeping rules with you. As you can see, we're keeping everybody's microphones muted. You would see a Q&A option popping up, and please do write your questions there. And between me and my co-panelist, Sweetie, we will make sure that these questions get addressed either by our speaker or by me, depending on what the question is. So without further ado, I'm very, very pleased to welcome Mr. Anuraag Bhatnagar, Chief Operating Officer of Leela Hotels, Palaces and Resorts. Good evening, Anuraag, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Dilip. Good evening. Great to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Bhatnagar is the head of the Leela Hotel Company, which some of you may be aware has very recently undergone an acquisition, and it was acquired by a company called Brookfield, and Anuraag's been leading the company into the transition of what is amongst India's largest investments of foreign direct investment into hospitality, a beautiful portfolio of hotels. Perhaps he will share a little more about some arguably very iconic hotels which operate under the Leela brand. Anuraag was previously with the Marriott organization for about 3 years, before that with Starwood, and then Starwood and Marriott, as some of you know, merged. He used to be the general manager of the St. Regis Hotel in Mumbai, brought that brand to India, and many people within our industry often know him and refer to him as Mr. Luxury. In our days in Starwood, when Anuraag was a colleague of mine, we had a concept amongst our senior managers called the Anuraag Bhatnagar School of Management. It was where Anuraag developed and grew a significant number of young professional managers who today are either in positions of ex-coms or have become general managers of various hotels. And so very, very recognized in our industry for developing people. We're going to have Anuraag speak with us initially, and then we would have a bit of an interaction between him and me. We recognize that amongst our audience, we have quite a disparate number of people. We have students of ISH, we have aspiring students who are looking to pursue an education in hospitality. We perhaps have students who are confused about their future education choices, going abroad. We have their parents, perhaps. I know we have quite a few industry colleagues here who've logged in as well. So it's an interesting mix of people attending this webinar. And without further ado, I want to hand over to Anuraag. Perhaps you can start, Anuraag, by sharing a bit more, firstly, on your role, and then how are you dealing with it in this time of lockdown in COVID? And perhaps then you can take us through some of the things you see and expect will happen in the future. People are talking about new normals. I'm certain our students, aspiring students, would like to know a little more about your views on the recovery period and how travel, tourism, hospitality sectors will fare. So welcome once again, and over to you, Anuraag.
Thank you, Dilip. Thank you. And that's got a nice sporty beard that you got right now, I think. And like amongst, we live and learn every day. So work from home is something that I could have never realized or ever fathomed, that one can actually get work done from home. I always thought that if one was home, it was only you and Netflix, but actually work can get done. And I see that every day. So yeah, I mean, for a lack of a better word or a different word, I think we are going through interesting times, because unprecedented times. But as we always say, this too shall pass. That's the outlook that we have. Been in this business for many years and had the privilege of working and serving under you, along with you, Dilip. I don't know how many of you know Dilip has been my boss in my previous life and continues to be my guardian and role model in many ways. So, having lived through many of these and gone through many of these loops of fire, the 9/11, 2611. One thing which is very true of our business and our industry is resilience. Our ability to bounce back and bounce back higher and faster with agility. And the new normal that you alluded to, I think it's almost a reset and a reboot and a reinvent kind of a mode where all of us have had this moment to pause, introspect, look at what's important and not necessarily what's urgent, and look at what really matters in life and what really matters in business. We are at this crux of what I would say a breakout moment where we'll have to reprogram our services, redesign our offerings, where safety, security, and wellness is going to be the new normal and the new security. What 9/11 did for us in terms of our hotels, in terms of changing our and impacting our arrival experience, where all of us are so used to seeing an X-ray machine and seeing a door frame metal detector, and we no longer object to physical screening at the airports or in our hotels. The same stuff is going and more is going to be happening in post-COVID. So I think we all are set for the new normal and what how the arrival experience. So what we are working on, like representing an Uber luxury, a true Indian luxury portfolio like the Leela, is how we can serve our customers better and safer, whilst bringing to them warm, gracious luxury hospitality offering in an environment which is now averse to physical contact and social distancing has become the new buzzword, how do we still remain personal? From high touch and high tech, as Dilip used to talk about earlier, we'll probably be low touch but high tech, or no touch but high tech. And how can we use technology to like smoothen and ensure that whilst we keep offering our customers an experience, how that experience is low touch and unobtrusive and yet meaningful for our guests. So this is some of the stuff that we are working on. But in many ways, these are also interesting times because they have, as I said earlier, awakened us to a reality that a lot can be done with less. What can we do in terms of like work from home can soon become work from hotels. So there's an opportunity. We have realized the value of having a base business. We've realized the value of having a long stay segment. We realize that it's not necessarily ADR, but RevPAR is what you take to the bank. As hoteliers and general managers, I think all of us have started thinking like CFOs, where cash flow and cash preservation is the new mantra. So we no longer take great pride in terms of what was my ranking on STR and what's the my I'm on the ADR index, but how much money I have in the bank. And because these are some rude awakenings which have told us how fragile our business models are and how important it is for us to be absolutely prudent and cautious in the way we spend our dollars without affecting a guest experience. On the other side, I think it has really opened avenues in terms of e-learnings and in terms of technology usage and really upskilling our resources. And I think this is where Dilip, institutions like ISH can really come to the forefront. The amount of stuff that we've been able to get done in terms of SOP training, upskilling, e-learnings, working on the policies and program side of life, and really looking at taking creative time out to think how should be our new F&B offerings? Will a hard-bodied menu card really be worthwhile? Because every guest will be mindful, okay, hey, this menu card was probably handled by 20 other guests before me a few hours before. So how do we basically reimagining every aspect of a service? So this is what is keeping us busy and awake. And always going back to another interesting thing, and I'm speaking about resilience. You know, we are very fortunate to be living and working in a country like India, where the outbound is 3x of the inbound. So whilst an inbound ain't going to happen in the Q4 or early until at least early Q1 next year, but I think we have a very, very robust domestic travel, domestic economy. I really believe that people fundamentally like to travel and they like to experience new destinations. They want to go to new resorts. They would really probably wanting to unlock themselves after this lockdown. And like this lockdown isn't going to become a force of habit, they will really explore destinations where they can travel to by road without having to be in a contained environment of an aircraft. So we see opportunities in the domestic travel segment, and we are focused on that as a business. The second thing which makes India unique is the wedding business. Weddings are going to happen. We already see queries coming to many of our hotels. And of course, I was reading somewhere, instead of having big fat Indian weddings, we may have mid-size, semi-slim Indian weddings, but they will still happen. And we can see that pipeline building up. And of course, people are very cautious. Most of these trends we are seeing are in Q4, and I'm referring to October to December period. But I really believe that these two segments will really sustain us. And I'm sure the corporate business will start coming back to us, maybe in a lower trickle, because our key feeder markets for India have always been the US and Europe. They are affected the most, but we definitely see them coming back to us because business won't really stop or allow itself to get stopped. So very excited to be here, Dilip, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to communicate with you. And I can see almost 95, 189 almost attendees out here. So a big shout out to all of them, and great to be
So
here.
let me straight away get into some of the questions I'm seeing coming up already, and these are questions which everybody would want answered, regardless of whether they're students or working professionals. But where this impact on the COVID, specifically on the hotel industry, as I asked earlier, travel tourism, and people are talking about recovery period. What are these periods they're talking about? Is this recovery? What will happen in 3 months? What will happen in 6 months? What will happen in 1 year or 2 years? Just from your experience, give our audience a sense that immediately near term, what's going to happen, and then how things will move on and progress after that. When do we see a path back to whatever peak you might have had?
So Dilip, I don't think we will have a V-shaped recovery, as some uber optimists were kind of proclaiming that we might have a V-shaped recovery. That doesn't seem like a probability now. In a best case scenario, we would have a probably, in my estimate, a U-shaped recovery. We will have a quarter two, which is April to June, a complete washout. When I say complete washout, most hotels, not just Leela, but most hotels are doing very, very abysmal low occupancies of single digits or thereabouts, if they are open. And incidentally, all Leela hotels are open today and shall remain open. So we see at best a U-shaped recovery coming in. We'll see some trickling of business coming in July and August. And we see a sense of normalcy, near normalcy, if I may use the word, coming in Q4, which is October to December, pillared by and fueled by the weddings as well as small MICE and domestic travel. But even that being said, it won't be the Q4 equivalent to last year. We are expecting it to be 20-25% of what a normal Q4 expectation would have been there. In most of our projections, we are looking at Q1 to next year, which is Jan to March, getting the closest to what a typical Q1 would be in a portfolio like ours.
So you don't think that international travel is going to take longer to come back? People are still going to be hesitant to do a business travel. Now they've all get used to doing meetings online, as we all are these days. The fear of perhaps still being too close to people. So a lot of people today say that till the vaccine doesn't come and everybody is not vaccinated, there really wouldn't be any return to what we were in pre-COVID. Do you agree with that? And is that something you can see happening?
I fully agree with that, because we don't see that happening in the short term. And I'm talking short term, I'm talking about the next 6 months for the reasons which are, I think, known to all. A, the West, which is our biggest feeder market, has been the hardest hit. There have been job losses and the sentiment is so down. So even if people wanted to travel, they may not have the propensity to travel long haul and come to India. Secondly, there would be a recovery period for everyone, people to get back to their life and their businesses. So, and they would have all consumed their possible leaves. So they may not have the ability to take another 2 weeks time off to travel to a country like India. Business travel would still happen, but I would say very cautiously, because all companies have eaten into their cash balances and would be in a cash preservation mode. So travel, even if it is, travel will only happen if it is critical or very essential. So we definitely don't see the inbound and international travel coming back to somewhat normal in the near 6 to 9 months.
And I'm seeing another question coming up, which is about within this recovery in hospitality, is it likely to be the lower budget mid-scale segments which will bounce back faster and the luxury and upper upscale will take much longer? Or will it be the opposite, or there'll be both segments which would be recovering or lagging behind?
I think both segments would recover almost at the same pace. We are counting on the urban affluent luxury travelers who may not travel to Bali or New York or somewhere exotic for a vacation right now and who want to visit one of our resorts, one of our beautiful resorts. So I don't think the luxury hotels would miss this path to recovery on this cycle. So I think it will be kind of spread out. Resorts will gain a lot. Resorts, as I said, which are within 4 to 5 hours of driving distance between key cities. So typically resorts in and around Bangalore, in and around Delhi, NCR would really benefit a lot. As I said, because people would be happier to travel in their own car with their own drivers in a sanitized environment and go to a resort where they know it's going to be safe and they'll be taken good care of.
You earlier on in your address, when you started, spoke about how events like 9/11, 26/11 shaped different norms within the industry, traveling, staying, security, all of that. And then you mentioned something, we'll have to reset and reboot. So tell us some of the things which you yourself are already planning have to be implemented, like when they say social distancing, are you already thinking what do you do with your banquet halls, your restaurants? When they say health safety, are you already putting in SOPs about, do guests, for example, have to, when they're making the reservation, have to provide some travel history, some medical history? Are you starting to look for thermoscanners in your hotels? Just are there things already which are almost immediately required, which will have to be done when you guys start, operating fully again?
No, absolutely, Dilip. So we are thinking on it as we speak right now. There's a core group of a few general managers and few of us who are working on what the new normal experience should be like. And to your point, yes, we are reimagining and rebooting every service, starting from the airport arrival experience to the check-in experience. Going back to what we would require as a disclaimer from the guests, we'll go along with what the authorities and what the government decides eventually in terms of details to take in from a guest in terms of travel history. We wouldn't want to be too intrusive necessarily, but yes, I can see that there'll be some kind of a declaration coming from there. But I believe in general, we will have to make sure that the special, like what we are doing in terms of safety and hygiene and sanitation has to be high impact. It has to be tangible and it has to be literally in your face. Hypothetically, if we came up with a good looking tunnel where you could spend 6 to 7 seconds and walk through the tunnel and which creates that you are fully sanitized, your clothes are sanitized, that could become like a normal. Uh, the seating in the restaurants is going to be reprogrammed, so we follow the 3 to 4 feet rule in terms of seating. Banquet and ballroom capacities will have to be reworked in certain way, the size of the booking that you would take in a ballroom, how the banqueting buffets and restaurant buffets are laid out, because these are areas. So we are working on that, that how do we, if at all we need to lay out buffets, and if we need to lay out the buffets, how do we need to lay them, so that, because you would always be worried, okay, who touched this ladle before me? So it's probably going to be a chef standing behind the buffet who's going to be serving, rather than a self-service kind of a buffet. Our in private dining, our housekeeping services, our laundry services, all of that is being revisited. Even how we place our rooms, it's very, I'm sure every guest would want to know a question, that who stayed there before me, and was this room kind of vacant? So if possible, we'll try to rotate the rooms in such a way, while it should make commercial sense as well, to make sure that so what we do in terms of this message that we constantly communicate has to be constant, and it has to be slightly more, if I would use the word, not so subtle. So this is again a reimagination, that we have always been clean hotels. We always, as you know, the space that we work in, Dilip, there is always an extra focus and attention. It's just that it has to be right out there, whether it's the equipment that you could install in your public spaces, and the ease at which the guest can access, hand sanitizers and the visible impact of housekeeping. I mean, we are also debating how many guests should be allowed inside an elevator and how should they be standing in a guest elevator so that we can practice social distancing and some minimum distancing.
So I can see a lot of our questions are coming from our colleagues from the industry, but I do want to keep some focus on young people, students, aspirants who are thinking of this as a career. And I'm seeing some questions here, and I'm going to combine a few. Uh, and maybe you could start by answering. How are you looking at the people side, the HR side? One, tell us about jobs. How will it in the future impact with all these things? Clearly, hotels would be rethinking FTE ratios, more efficiencies. These are all opportunities there. So one might argue that there'll be fewer jobs. The current employees, young people aspiring to go into the industry, give some sense of what can they look forward to. I mean, I might have students who are asking us that should we even venture into studying for a career in any industry in hospitality, travel, tourism, given that they're being impacted now. I mean, we always tell them that, look, you're lucky you're starting studying today, because by the time you graduate, the world would have changed and the industries would have boomed and recovered back. So give some comfort, confidence, to your sense to our young students as well.
No, absolutely. Dilip, a short answer to that is I think it's, and I maintain it not just today, but all throughout the 30 years that I've been in this industry. It's a great industry to be a part of. Yes, of course, there is a temporary setback. I would say a bit of a pause in terms of this COVID impact, but the industry is resilient. It will bounce back. In terms of specific of jobs, and if I can speak only on behalf of the Leela portfolio, we have been very, very mindful of keeping our communication channels alive. We have been doing live town halls, speaking to the general managers. As I mentioned earlier, all our hotels are open. It's very, very important that this is the time that leadership has to be visible, even if digitally. And so we have kept those communication channels open. We are finding innovative ways I mean, trimming down our payroll expenses without having to resort to any haircuts or any such, or which will some other measures which may directly impact our associates. We've been very, very mindful of that. Specifically, why? Because we are expanding and we are growing. We are opening 3 new hotels. And I know by the time we reach September or October, we probably will have few more announcements to make. So we have a long-term view on our business. It's always helpful to be a part of a well-capitalized setup which has a long-term view. And I know there are many other operators who may also have the same viewpoint and look at this adversity as somewhat of an opportunity to exponentially grow your business and have a footprint or have a flag in the markets where you don't exist currently. So there's an opportunity. Coming back to my perspective on the industry, I stand by it. I think our industry is also, even today, is underserviced in the branded hotel segment and has both the propensity as well as the demand driver, long-term demand driver, to have many more hotels, and hence the need for extremely well-trained and skilled talent across. However much we kind of embrace technology, and yes, we are looking at right sizing, we are looking at re-looking at all the services, and in terms of how to deliver the same experience whilst maintaining the protocols. But they would always, this is a has been a people-led business, will always be people-led business, and there is always going to be a job or a career rather, not just a job. And for young people who are on this call, and I think this time is a time which will prepare us and a great opportunity to get skilled, pick on the qualifications, pick on the stuff that you normally wouldn't have, like look at revenue management, look at asset management, go beyond the operational departments alone, look at leadership qualities that will sustain you in the future. And yes, we will always be scouting for talent.
Right. Um, I'm just going to shift focus for 1 minute to answer a few questions which are coming out, which are about can students go abroad, internationally, travel, all of that. So let me just say that as you've seen us in the discussion also, um, international travel may start maybe 3 months from now or even less, but what countries are likely to do in terms of their visa regimes, in terms of, like, you're already hearing talk in Europe and the US that even if universities open, they'll open only for their domestic students first. There'll be a reluctance to allow large-scale international students to come. What protocols are likely to exist in terms of do you require a vaccination certificate? I don't know if any of you remember, but many years ago, I used to live in Africa, in Kenya. And 25 years ago, East Africa had yellow fever. But for 25 years, they required you to carry a vaccination book saying you've taken the yellow fever shot whenever you're returning from Africa. And I think it went away only about 5 years ago. So, with all of this, my sense is that international travel, and therefore students who may be aspiring to study internationally, I think it would be prudent to have a plan B, to think of pushing that out by at least a year, maybe one semester, maybe 2 semesters. And one of the things you could be doing is looking to bridge with an Indian institution. At ISH, we offer a lot of opportunities for students who would otherwise be going abroad to study, to be able to do their first or second semester here, and then hopefully be able to take full credit to transfer to whichever institutions they were going to internationally, particularly if they were in Europe or in Australia. So to answer questions about what students should be thinking of, my sense is whatever course you're looking to do, think of doing it in India, at least for the first year. And I would urge you to look at institutions, and this is not just about ISH, but today India has some fine institutions coming up in the private sector space, in undergrad, postgrad. You hear brand names like Ashoka University. We have great business schools already in India for postgrad students. So the lure of going abroad needs to be tempered for a while. And I think this is a concern not just young students are having, but probably their parents are having. Many of us, even in the industry today, we're thinking about the same lines that would I want to send my kid in now September when we don't know what's going to happen. So that's my answer to many of the questions which are coming out on that. I'll go back and ask again. It's about students asking these questions, Anurag, but they're saying, where typically do students start when they finish a hospitality program? This may be a good time for you to take them through your graduating from IHM Pusa when you did, and your career. And so they can aspire to say that, with a degree in hotel management as you had, what your journey was. And today in particular, I think you've seen how the hotel industry has spawned multiple new sectors where hospitality graduates go and work. I know you often hire people who don't necessarily come from the hotel industry, but come from various sectors which are linked through that, soft skills, customer centricity, which hotel graduates typically have. So maybe you could give some color to students, to parents about what options are there, where do you expect them to start, and through that, your own early journey as well.
My early journey was like I'm a graduate of IHM Pusa. I did not have the privilege of working in a such an outstanding institution like the ISH, because I wouldn't have qualified or made it anyway. But at least that the dream. So I think there is always. We are always looking out for talent. Our industry, as I mentioned earlier, is looking out, is expanding, is growing. Even post COVID, I see that the pace of growth may have slowed down, but it'll all bounce back. Many hotels which were, I would say, at various stage of completion may get stalled, maybe for 9 months to 12 months, maybe 15 months, but they will get open. They will be opening, and there will always be requirement for fresh talent. Why hospitality and why a premier institute is, and I say it from my own life and my own experience, I think a great college education is like a finishing school for life. If I go back to my days in college, because you will learn skills and develop competencies and behavior skills which prepare you for life in many other verticals as well. Our biggest challenge today, and this has been almost the same challenge for the last 5 years, and is likely to be the challenge for the next 3 years as well, is how do we fuel the ambitions and aspirations of the next generation millennials like yourself. I have seen people grow in 18 months to the next level and yet complaining, I'm not growing fast enough. I mean, I have a son who's slightly older than some of you, and I can tell you, in comparison with many other corporate structures, the quantum of growth that one can expect in hospitality, from a management training program to a general manager, in reality is happening in 10 years. It's no longer 20 years or 15 years. It used to happen in my days. The cyclist, of course, there's a lot of passion that is needed. There's a lot of perseverance that is needed. So that's only about talking about hotels. But we see a lot of exodus and attrition happening to related businesses, whether it's foreign banks, whether it is luxury retail, whether it's working for a mall. So we see a lot of people, if I may say the word, poach from hotels, and they're moving. And young aspiring hoteliers, we have a kind of a drain going to these related businesses. So if it was just in question of getting a great job and reaching to your right goals and aspirations, hospitality still remains a fantastic finishing school and as an employment generator.
Hmm. Um, I want to give students some comfort coming from an expert from the industry and a leader there. A lot of students, current students, and this would be any hospitality student, I think, wondering will they still get internships? And those who might be graduating soon, do they have to worry about the fact that there won't be jobs for them? What can you tell those students in terms of giving them any comfort or telling them that maybe that's the reality?
They will definitely get internships, and there will definitely be jobs for them when they're ready to graduate. And even now, I mean, I look, even today, if I may talk about Leela Hotels, we haven't stopped recruiting. I know some of you may find it extremely amazing and kind of very, very contrarian approach. Rather, we see this as an opportunity to attract, and quoting from you, the war on talent is not over. This is a time for us to kind of make inroads in hiring the right talent, or probably from our competitors who probably are not looking as forward as we are today. So we are definitely recruiting even today. So if there are some people in the room who believe that they have it in them, we'll be open to all talented associates. And surely, like the industry grows and more opportunities come in, because today I think a graduate from a premier institute is not just going to end up becoming a chef or a front office or a rooms division or an F&B manager. You become a sales director, you become a revenue analyst or a specialist, you become a digital marketing associate, and then you go on. And even the general manager of today, the GMs that we're looking out for, they're not necessarily, like during my days, they had to be either from F&B or rooms division background. Dilip, if you recollect, these are the two channels and they sprouted GMs or bubble the GM talent. Today, we are looking people from revenue management background becoming successful general managers. There are human resources directors who have become general managers, directors of finance. Our ex-CEO in our previous life was from a culinary pastry chef who ended up becoming the president of Asia Pacific. And I know many CEOs who are from finance background and became general managers and then became rose up higher. So it's great to have this kind of education, and but a well-rounded one where you challenge your own boundaries. And literally, if you're prepared to walk into a wall in the beginning, do that. But when you come out on the other side, you'll be much better and stronger.
Okay, so let's switch back to some more aspects of the industry because, as I said, the audience is a mix of both, and we'll come back to some student questions in a bit. So, a lot of people are asking rates. So, even today, when you hear experts speak on television, is it again going to become a race to the bottom in the recovery that everybody wants customers back? So, luxury hotels are dropping rates. It happened post 9/11. It happened post most crises where we thought that by dropping our rates, um, our competitors will be kept away. Uh, Within the industry as leaders, are you actually fearing that there's going to be a lot of price correction? Luxury hotels, winter's coming up soon, you want to protect business. Are you going to be dropping race packages, or do you think the industry this time is more understanding resilient and saying that, look, we've got to fight it together and we can't be competing and cutting rates?
Yeah, otherwise it's a, as you said, it's a fight to the bottom. Reducing rates and slashing services don't really add up, and it's a very short term gain for a long term pain. As we realized, being through two cycles of 9/11, 26/11, and 2008, that dropping rates may probably win you that contract in the short run, but then it takes you 3 years to climb back to what would have been a 2020 rate. So that's definitely not a way forward. However, when it comes to long lead bookings, because of the cash flow situation that we want to preserve and where we are looking at advances, what we are doing as a company is we are giving an early movers advantage and an early purchase advantage to many of our customers. What we are also doing is we are giving more value at the same rate. Hypothetically, if you had booked at a Leela hotel and for obvious reasons you couldn't travel, and if you were to reinstigate your booking, or if you were able to reinstall your booking, you would get a mandatory upgrade with a dinner offering or an invitation to a cocktail or some value addition, which is more experiential in nature. So this is how we are approaching it without really reducing the rates. That's our approach. And I'm hoping that the industry will also stand by it, because many of the industry leaders that I've been in touch with, they seem to have a similar mindset.
Yes, the problem is, in my own experience when I was in the industry, is that we all spoke that language while a crisis was on, but we all scrambled because each one had pressures from their shareholders. Many of the international companies will have pressures from their owners because most of the big international brand operate hotels here. You, of course, have a mix of your portfolio, but I'd be surprised if Indian owners aren't going to be putting a lot of pressure back on the operators as soon as there's any sign of recovery, saying get the business back. And India's traditional mindset is, if I protect my occupancy first, then that's the priority and everything else will happen. And in that, the rate goes. So while I like the optimism, Anurag, I think as an industry leader, you have to make sure that you and others actually walk the talk, because if the rates go down after this, it is just a double whammy to the industry.
Absolutely.
Everybody is scrambling to recover, and yet everybody is shooting themselves in the foot, not realizing that, you really shot yourself, nobody else.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And to that question, of course, there is going to be pressure from all stakeholders, and debts have to be serviced, such standards have to be maintained. So I think what all hoteliers need to do is to look at, and I'm sure they are doing that, evaluate every opportunity from a perspective of total revenue opportunity or the total hotel opportunity, not be blindsided that only by the ADR or the rate. And we have seen many hotels where you probably say no to a certain piece of business, wherein they could have given you a lot more revenue on F&B or length of stay. So one has to be creative about doing their business. But I think contractual rates, RFP rates, and static contracts, we will have to hold a line, and we intend holding a line on the static rates, wherein we be more flexible, as I said, for long lead bookings and for volume bookings, to ensure that we get a kind of a base business.
Interesting. Switching to food and beverage, and there's some questions here on F&B. Somebody's asking about, obviously, standalone restaurants are getting severely impacted. Clearly, hotel restaurants are more or less out of business. Um, in the recovery time, what may be some opportunities, whether it is small hotels, restaurants, bigger hotel restaurants, to find new channels to be able to sell food? I'm seeing an ad, for example, in Delhi of a hotel like the JW Marriott is offering a whole package of deliveries of food from the hotel. So it's like, you can't come and experience luxury dining with us, but we can give you that experience at home because that's where you are. Is that likely to become something which more hotels are going to do? Are you people thinking about this? Do you see in any way F&B being able to prop up? Banquets mice will take a hit for a while. What's your sense about F&B trends in this post-COVID world, both for the big hotels and generally as you see it?
So I think for the bigger hotels, I think there would be, if we go back to our earlier discussion, where health, safety, hygiene, and sanitation is going to be a very big pivot in terms of taking a dining decision as well. So I guests would want to walk into a hotel where they're absolutely certain that the highest and best standards of safety and hygiene and sanitation are going to be maintained. That's going to be a big advantage for hotels as long as all these efforts are there and they are visible and tangible and evident. So that's going to be that probably may sideline some of the hotels and maybe a few restaurants which don't practice it, or optics, or are perceived not to be practicing it, or there's a fear around them. That's one. New segments, as you clearly mentioned, takeaway segment, tie-ups with aggregators to deliver food and lunch boxes and packet boxes to corporate offices. That's also going to be another big segment. Banqueting may get affected, rather is getting affected because of certain government, as well as the whole sentiment that is prevailing. We see the size of events getting smaller, and of course, so whilst the hotel restaurants, uh, I think F&B will take a bit of a slam in that sense, but we will have more resident capture. We are counting on a resident capture to increase from a current 30-35%. It's likely to become, because look, for you to be staying in a hotel and walking out to dine around in another standalone restaurant, you either will have to step into an unknown car or walk to an unknown restaurant, or not. So that resident capture, which we were losing in many of our city hotels, that's going to come back. We are hoping that the resident capture would be enough for us to, uh, uh, circumvent the walk-in ratios.
Do you think spas will continue to exist as they do? There's a lot of talk saying that spas might become sanitation chambers. They might have different uses. What's your view on that?
I think spas we'll have to rethink everything, because that's a close proximity, very heavy contact area. So obviously we are looking at our service rituals and our SOPs on the spa as we speak. We are looking at the whole ventilation and re-looking at what needs to be done in there, and what should be the training of us therapists to ensure there. Whilst on one hand there'll be a lot more focus on wellness, on building immunity. So some of the stuff that we are doing in our hotels is introducing immunity, and food and beverage and welcome drinks that offer that kind of immunity, as a welcome drink or an evening drink or a part of our ceremonial rituals or an evening ritual as a touch point. Now that is now becoming the new fashion statement, if I may say, that hey, this is a drink, a warm drink, which has got all these components, and yet it builds your. It's like an elixir. It builds your immunity.
Hmm.
Likewise in the spa, whether it's the fragrances, whether it's the oils, everything that we're doing has to be around wellness, and regarding the contact, we'll have to ensure that the outfits that the therapists wear and the kind of rituals that they follow have to be programmed accordingly.
Interesting. Now, one of the things we are seeing is that because everybody is working from home, right now, all your hotels, people are working from home. So certain functional departments which don't have to be in direct guest contact, if I think of HR or finance, marketing, some other people who say, will this work from home become a norm? You can save so much on office space in hotels. You can save on them traveling, commute, productivity, time. How real do you think this work from home might become a more new normal, even within the hospitality industry?
On the opportunity side, we have seen some early interest from many of our corporate clients who are asking for rooms to be used as work from hotel, like an office. So wherein, so like somewhat like a, if I may use the word, like this, like a co-working spaces. Probably they may lose a few customers to hotels, because you may want to have an office space which is in a contained environment of a room. So that's what some of our clients are thinking, and we have had a few expressions of interest. I'm sure many hoteliers have probably received the same. As far as our own teams are concerned, yes, I think this lockdown and this work from home has given us ideas that not everybody needs to show up at a certain time and be slogging the same hours and traveling through the same elevator. And it has really made us look at work can actually happen on a tight calendar, on a tight timeline, if you're working from home as well. So yes, we are looking at all those options, how we can improve our productivity, how do we look at our rostering and scheduling, and what we can do in terms of ensuring that everybody wins in the long run.
One of the things I wanted to share also with the audience, and I discussed this with Anuraag this morning when we were chatting about the session. If you wind back just 3 years, in November of 2017, when Prime Minister Modi demonetized, right? 7th November, I remember clearly, many of you might remember the date. A consequence of demonetization, which for many people, for us in the F&B industry, it was catastrophic in many ways initially. If you remember, which sector benefited the most after demonetization? Basically digital payments. I mean, Paytm became almost a generic name after that, right? And then you have from PhonePe to Google Pay to Uspay, there's all kinds of pay. So we were almost forced into a social habit of paying digitally, where otherwise we paid in currency. And it's become a habit. Today, you can even pay an auto rickshaw wala or your local kirana guy with digital payments rather than have cash with them. When you think of the scenario we're in today, particularly the lockdown, I'm not talking about broadly the issue of the virus, but the fact that people are locked down and you're all consuming all kinds of things online. In our case, our students are consuming learning online. Many people I know, colleagues of mine, maybe you're doing it also, that they're buying courses and upskilling themselves. So what's happening is that almost it's being forced onto you as a habit, this consuming online learning, because you just have the time, right? For young students and for young people, what I'd say is that it's the most amazing benefit you can get, because what it's doing is it's creating a mindset of embracing and accepting this online learning today, so that even when you're a working professional, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you will always have a desire to continuously upskill yourself, because you say it's so easy for me to go online and pick up a course and learn it as you're being forced to do today. So start thinking about what some social habits are going to change in people, like they change to being digitally savvy in payments after demonetization, after this lockdown and our experience in it. My sense is everybody should be able to look at digital education, blended learning, online learning. And so to that point, my sense is with industry, whether it's hospitality, whether it is any other business where training happens, today, you must recognize that a majority of people have been accustomed to and forced to inculcate this habit of having to learn online, having to educate themselves online. And it's a great habit to pick up, right? It was forced upon us. If COVID hadn't happened, many of us would still keep talking about, yeah, online digital, but we would never do it. But because we've been forced to do it, and if it becomes a habit, it can be very transformational for the younger generation. And I would say even for people today. I mean, I have friends at my age who very excitedly are calling me and telling me, "Arey, I have registered to do a course to learn Microsoft Excel." I said, great. You would never have done it otherwise, but you're forced to do it now and you're doing it. You seem to be enjoying it. If it becomes a habit, you will constantly be able to keep yourself upskilled. That's a message I think should be going out in industry to their people, saying there's never a better time for learning and development to really seize this opportunity that there is.
No, absolutely. As a matter of fact, everybody in our group at every level has now is going to be having the availability as well as a clear-cut mandate and a roadmap in terms of what are the possible courses that they can take, A, based on the competency requirement and the future aspirations, B, in terms of job rotation or something that gives them better equipped for the new roles. Even I took a few courses online, and I took them after many years, and it was very interesting, and actually gave a few online tests and happened to pass them too. And I got an online certificate, which I felt very proud about. So, and those tests weren't easy, Dilip. I mean, I couldn't delegate them. They were at a certain time frame that I had to finish them in 45 minutes. So it was interesting, the video. I mean, the quality of training that you can get actually online is like, you have the world-class subject matter experts talking to you with ease, and you can actually have interactions. And so I see a lot of value personally and for the industry as well.
I mean, I'm having so many people reach out to us because we already have the platform because we are an academic institution. We have 150 students who are studying with us across multiple courses. We have about 19 of us faculty members who are delivering learning. So every day in delivering online learning, we're thinking about how can this become more efficient? How can we digitize more of our content? Because what's happening is we are able to see consumption patterns of our students. They're telling us how they want to consume, how it's easier, better for them to consume, both in terms of contextually as well as in terms of time. And so for us, we see what we are doing today like almost like a laboratory. We can experiment, which is why I urge everybody. I said, today always ask yourself two opposing questions. Are you running with time? Are you running against time? Today, if you are using the time you have to build a skill for yourself, to do things which you otherwise would never have done if you weren't locked down there, that means you're running with time. You're using time effectively. 6 months later, when things are back to normal, if you have to look back and say, "Kash us time pe wo kiya hota," or somebody else has come and done it where you only thought of it, then you'll be running against time. And so I encourage working professionals, young students, people even like us who are in education now, that if there ever is a time to find new ways of upskilling, of learning. And I'll tell you what's interesting is that when you begin to see how your user wants to consume and how you as the producer want to deliver, and it's happening live in an environment like ISH. I'm a faculty member or I have a chef who's teaching a class and he's got students right there. Then and there is an interactivity which allows you to understand the consumer's behavior and needs, and the consumer's allowed to see that how easy or difficult it is for the producer to deliver what I want. I want to learn this particular class in this particular way. Maybe it never came to us when we were in class in the campus. Today, when we're doing it this way, we're suddenly seeing that, sir, I can learn that much easier if you just, send us this 5-minute clip of this. It saves us so much more time. And like that, you're gradually beginning. So we will start creating a lot more digital content for not just our students, but for industry, because we believe that users will have created a habit of learning thanks to being in this environment of this lockdown. And to anybody listening out here, there's no age in this. You would want to upskill yourself at the age of 50 or at the age of 18 or 20 or anywhere in between, and utilize this time because well, I've been in the industry, I've seen how it is there. Today I see it in education, and it's a very significant opportunity for all of us to make actually a forced habit, something which can benefit not just us, but this young generation in the future as well. So let's go back to a couple of more questions since we have about 7 minutes more before we wind up. Anurag, I'm seeing concerns coming from fair number of questions here about this freeze on staff, job salary cuts, downsizing. I know you referred to it and you referred to Leela, but if you just look broadly at industry sectors relating, it's a genuine concern, isn't it? You said, companies with large cash reserves can survive, so Leela can, but what's going to happen to smaller chains, to restaurants, to the F&B businesses? Can you give some sense of how they might see it? Many employees are being forced to take their leaves today. Tomorrow, if things don't become better, you'll ask for pay cuts. Next, some people might ask to go away. I think it's important to give them some sense of what the reality is likely to be.
I think the reality is what we read about and what we feel every day. Hospitality has been the hardest hit. I would say hospitality, aviation, generally the travel trade has been the hardest hit or amongst the hardest hit. And somewhat it may not be, because, the business that we are in is a very capital intensive business. The talent that we require is one of our bigger costs that we have, all hotels. payroll and maintenance, and heat, light, and power being the top three spends, as you know. So yes, it's a real concern and a real stress, but I see that many companies, many established hoteliering companies are able to ride out and are willing and prepared to ride out this blip, or not a blip, rather this trough right now, because it's about a long-term vision where you know that whilst it may make a lot of commercial sense to furlough or let go of people, but you need to re-recruit when you get the customers back. And you know, this is the time for many hotel companies, and I can tell you there are some who are demonstrating, they're walking the talk. It's not just about it's like practicing what you speak, and I have seen that, and I'm not just talking only of Leela hotels here. So this is it's about your core value systems, that how valuable you consider your associates and your employees, and to what extent are you prepared to back and support them. Of course, one has to find ingenious means. It could mean, and I'm not saying that we are doing it, but it could mean that maybe deferment of few benefits, as you said, consumption of all possible leaves, which may not directly impact your cash flow, but reduces your liability, ensuring flexibility in work hours, giving optional leaves and optional off days to that extent. Uh, but it's important that the jobs are protected, and I really feel that there are, of course, like different reactions that different organizations are having given on the unique situation that they are in. And I'm not saying what's the right or the wrong way here at all, but I mean, I never knew that this word existed till COVID came in, furlough. So I know that many organizations are using that to keep employees on a soft lane, and so that they can bring them back when the business arrives. So all
Can
of
I just ask you, slightly controversial, but please do try and answer. So within this, how they're going to look after employees, the good things is that, is there a difference between how Indian chains and international chains look at this or not?
I have to think about it, Dilip. As I said, I mean, I read and I kind of privy to the kind of the same information which is going around. I think it's about like how much of skin do you have in the game, and how vested are you in the long run, and that really makes a big decision. I mean, we all know that there are certain stalwarts in the industry who have really come out and really spoken their mind and have really uh, acted their words. So we really look upon. So this is the time I think the industry and the whole thing will spring out new leaders. There will be new statesmen coming forward, and this, I believe, these next 3 years will redefine the contours of the hospitality and travel trade business.
Hmm.
Redefine which are the actual great places to work, and who are the employers or who of preference.
Right, right. Reputations will be made or broken based on how people handle this crisis,
Yeah.
particularly organizations. I think that's absolutely true. Okay, we have a couple of more questions. We're running out of time. My God, Anurag, there were almost over 100 questions. So we might have to bring you back for another session very soon. I know we've tried to answer some, I've tried to combine some, but there would be some questions which haven't been answered, but you can feel free to reach out, certainly to me. I'd be happy to pass them on to Mr. Anurag to answer them later for you. But I want to kind of end with maybe one last question, Anurag. Um, when people are coming out of a situation like this, and whatever we've spoken about, how mindsets will change, how our whole approach will change, within the industry, amongst all the good things we are seeing, and Leela has been doing these good things also, the community. We've talked about how in catastrophes like this, a lot of people come out and brings out the best in people and sometimes the worst in people. But I've seen the great work, not just your company and hotels are doing, but so many in the hospitality industry, for example, just serving free food. And I've always asked this question, Will this hopefully become a new normal, and you continue to do this even in recovery, where food is so much a part of your business? There'll always be hungry people. Will the industry support the community like it has in a crisis, even when you come out of a crisis?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have never been closer to the community than we have been in the last, I would say, a month or so. I think overall, as an industry, it will make us more, more humble, if I may use that word, more connected, more inclusive. We will really bring the community in and reach out and embrace everyone, because we actually realized that whilst we are trapped within these walls and these uber luxurious five-star walls, there were people just outside our doors, literally. Like one of our hotels in Goa was actually taking care of the entire village. And actually, I was joking with the general manager that he is probably the new sarpanch of that village, because the amount of efforts that they made. So, look, we do acknowledge that, especially in our culture and in our country, uh, five-star luxury hotels are, if I may use the word, a semi-privileged and a kind of an elitist group. So this whole experience of COVID has really been a levelizer and and a humble experience, where you start valuing nature, you start valuing service, you start valuing actual hospitality. I would say, like Atithi Deva Bhava, that it's not just the guests, it's the equally important are your vendors, equally important. I mean, there are certain hotels where we had outstation associates who were locked down, and they neither they could go back to their houses or fly back, or so we had to find ingenious ways of ensuring that they could get their meals every day. So many heroes have sprung out, individual and both as hotels. So we are going to be changed like everyone else. I think the industry will also look at many things differently.
Indeed, indeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have to come to the end of the session because we've passed our time. But thank you very much, Anuraag. Very, very insightful. I'm sure the audience enjoyed the interaction. I must say there are just so many questions which we've not been able to answer. And Sweetie, I'm going to ask you to try and see how we can collate these and get some answers back. There are questions asked by industry. I hope you've tracked the questions asked by students. That's more important clearly for us. But to all our colleagues out there who were waiting to hear Anuraag Bhatnagar speak and had so many questions for him to answer, I've tried to combine a few, but I'm sure I missed out. And let's see what his schedule's like over the next couple of weeks. Anurag, like many current CEOs, tells me that it's very strange that my business is closed, there are no revenues coming in, there are no customers, but I'm working longer hours than I ever did before. And isn't that ironical?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So a lot of people are facing that. Perhaps it is going to be the new normal as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the webinar and look forward to having you back and having more sessions like this. Have a great evening. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, Dilip. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.